JoCat, a crap guide to Final Fantasy XIV healers. Now, as somebody that started my 14 journey going into, I was actually Pugilist, and then I actually went over to Black Mage, got my Black Mage to 90 in ARR, as one does, because this is definitely the normal behavior for people that play 14. No, it's not. I actually ended up swapping over to healer recently, and I ended up doing White Mage first, then I went into Astro, and all my healers at this point are over 50, which is the highest concentration of roles that I have over 50. So I'm very interested to see what JoCat has to say about healers, as somebody that generally plays healer roles, but hasn't played healer roles in 14, but then came into the healer role, and especially knowing how 14 functions more than I did initially. I'm very curious to see what we're going to have, what he's going to bring to the table.
I love power, and I love feeling powerful. It strokes my biggly wiggly and forces lesser beings to bow down to my awesome might, lest they taste my boot between their gums. Nothing has ever given me the same rush of adrenaline than knowing that everybody has to submit to my whims for their own safety. It makes my brain do the goody-good chemicals and allows me to feel as though I have control over this truly unfortunate reality that the universe is slowly careening into an eventual heat death, and there's nothing anybody can do about it, as we are inconsequential specks in this cruel and uncaring universe. But none of that
Existentialism, my beloved.
matters, because look at this. I can pull my party members into a pit that kills them. I find that hilarious. Welcome to A Crap Guide to Final Fantasy.
Not that I would do this, but all I'm saying is if my mod is tanking, I definitely would not rescue the mod into the mechanic or into the hole. Definitely would not press that funny little yellow rescue button. Nope, not me. No, no, sir.
The greatest power of all is the power to have control over people's lives, which is why the healer is the most likely party member to
Give you 5 mil HP to F off. Green DPS. One button rotation. Astro, at least up to 50 is a little different. Corruption Arc. Can't Isuna stupid. I feel like I Isuna more than other healers I've had.
to have a god complex, right behind main tanks, mentors, and anybody who's an omnicrafter. You are the most important person in the party, as you, along with the tank, are responsible for keeping the party alive by kissing.
Oh my god, it's so true, though. Like, because I as somebody that's just grinded a lot of Stone Vigil recently and had to do White Mage, had to do Astro, it's like, I am hugging that tank regardless of what pull they're doing. And obviously, if someone stands in a mechanic, gets hit with fire, obviously I'm using like Medica or whatever Astro's version of Medica is, right? And, you know, make sure my team's topped off. But generally, especially when the team member does a pull in Stone Vigil from the spawn to the first boss, a massive pull, which I've never done, like, until that one time I did it. And the tank survived. One of the DPSs died, but the tank lived. I was on that tank like wet on rice. Like, it was nutty. Oh, God.
Their boo-boos and slapping the bitch who made the boo-boo. That's right, as a healer, you do have to deal damage as well. Man, but it's called a healer, and healers are supposed to heal, right?
So on this subject, because I had this conversation in 14 as well, like, yes, in like Stormblood in-game content, like raids and stuff like that, yes, healers absolutely should be doing damage. And just as a general thing, if your tank is going to pull half the dungeon on them, and this is how I at least justify it and how I was told, UK, you might want to consider playing in this way, by actually a really lovely person in Final Fantasy like party chat, like just queued up with randoms, and they were helping me with advice, and they were actually super nice about it. And I'm just like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to people being nice. What is this game? I love it. But if the tank is going to do such a big pull like that, I will not drop my arrow. I will not drop my combust to make sure that the tank lives until the tank stops dying. As long as if the tank can maintain above 80% HP consistently, so all of the mitigations are still in play, then I'll start spreading arrow. But until then, I'm making sure the party members aren't dying. And yes, absolutely, if you're on cooldown, you should be casting your arrows, you should be casting your dots, you should be casting your Stone 2, your Malefic, whatever.
Right? Wrong! A healer's job is not necessarily to heal the party, but rather to keep them alive. And yes, there's a difference. There's going to be a lot of downtime between heals, and you bet your afflatus rumpus that you're making the fight take longer than it has to if you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for your next chance to cast Cure. What do you...
If the tank dies, it's the healer's fault. If the healer dies, it's the tank's fault. If the DPS dies, it's the DPS's fault. Well, you know what? Maybe the Dragoon stood in the mechanic again. Or like in Stone Vigil case, maybe you shouldn't get hit by the tornado as a healer that still gets hit by the tornado, right? It happens. Like, I get it. Generally, without the tank, everyone else is just gonna get just murdered. It's just how that works.
you do when the party's full health? What do you do when the party's full health? Or even halfway up and standing? DPS the bad guys. No, I don't pay your sub. But when the fight takes too long, it starts to rub all up on everybody's nerves. And when you hit endgame, it serves you right. When the boss will wipe the party cause you couldn't beat Enrage. Sure, you're for the most part.
I mean, I probably camp HP a little too high, honestly. Like, I'll run into situations where my tank's at like 80%, and this is level 50 content, right? So, I mean, there's definitely room to improve on this, and definitely evolution that the game is going to have going forward after ARR and even Heaven's Ward. I will camp a tank if they're like 80 plus. And if they're 80, if they drop down to about 50, I can start doing that now. 50% or lower, I will start massively healing them and burst healing. But like, yeah, no, if everyone's at, right here, everyone's at full health, right? What is stopping you from using Arrow? What is stopping you from using Combust? What is stopping you from... Because there's no debuffs, right? So you're not going to Asuna, right? You don't have to Asuna. I mean, maybe if someone's in a mechanic, maybe you can rescue them, but generally just start spreading DOT. Start hitting things. It keeps my brain engaged at the very least when I play healer.
Keeping the party alive with a variety of healing utility spells, some regen, some shields, but an equal amount of time you're casting those, you're also throwing in some extra DPS when time allows. Remember, DPSing is just mitigating future damage. And if you're able to kill the current wave of dungeon mobs before they deplete the tank's HP, which by the way is going to regen to full by the time you reach the next mob pull anyway, what does it matter how low their HP gets? So yes, DPS when time allows. When does time allow? Well, I know you're scared of independence and thinking by yourself, but that's going to be a balancing act you'll have to figure out. However, my rule of thumb is the minimum amount of HP a party member has to be at is 1. But if that's too scary for your whittle fingies, ask yourself, will the enemy's next attack make your party member fall on their ass? If yes, heal so that it doesn't. If no, time to become a glare mage, motherfucker. As long as they're alive and you're clearing the content, you're doing your job right. There is one caveat to...
I don't think I have access to glare yet, actually. I know I have access to Holy as a white mage, but I think glare might be 60 or 70 plus. And that's the thing, is I understand the game is still going to evolve past a certain point, right? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. There could be situations where you're going to just be the glare mage, right? Totally makes sense. As of ARR and probably early Heaven's Ward, it still turns into I'm hugging that tank. I'm hugging the DPSs wherever I can, making sure that they don't die. And absolutely, yeah, no, I'm going to take this into my healing queue. Is the tank going to die from the next hit? No. Cool, I could probably get another stone off. Cool, could probably get another malefic off. Oh, is there going to die in the next hit or two? Sure, let's just mitigate that a little bit, right? It is a balancing act, and there's still, I feel, nuance that could be said for this. This is definitely a broad overview that's going to be helpful in most situations.
To doing your job right, and that's that everybody will hate you for it. Literally, by healing, you start to generate a lot of aggro from the bad guys. So if you ever decide to heal before mob pulls in dungeons, it's important to stick close to the tank like an ERPer sticks to Vieira's wearing 2B thigh highs, especially if...
I got that one. I understand that reference now. No, and that's also another point, actually, that it wasn't explicitly told to me until, once again, this super legit Stone Vigil group was talking to me about it. Yeah, if you regen or you overheal, that will pull aggro from the tank. To which I've talked to my mods who happen to both be tanks, and they're like, well, I mean, I'll just pull the aggro back. And tanking gets funny when you can just the DPS is talking a mad game, and then they just shirk it onto the DPS to prove a point, and then you're gonna have to res them. I don't advise doing this in just like Party Finder. I advise doing this if you're playing with a group of friends and you're trying to have fun, right? I definitely don't advocate for shirking just to gank people. That could come across as bad taste. But like, no, that tracks.
If you throw on a regen and suddenly 800 mobs crash through the wall with a How to Fry Fairies cookbook, you can still do it, but you should know what you're getting into. Like live streaming and hoping that anybody will watch. As for your limit break, we heard you like healing, so we put more healing in your healing so you can heal while you heal. Unfortunately, you won't be using any limit break aside from LB3 because LB1 and 2 just heal the party, and you already have plenty of band-aids and popsicles to do that on your own. LB3, however, is so potent in healing it resurrects everybody in the party back from the dead instantaneously. But they will have to do...
So the way I understand this is the order of limit breaks in content as it stands, generally, and I'm sure there's nuance in this, generally you will be prioritizing your melee DPSs for limit break. You will be, at that point, then it'll shift down to range DPS, then it'll shift down to melee DPS, then it'll shift down to tank, but tank can actually go to the top depending on the situation, because tank just gives everybody like super mitigations, right? Your absolute last resort, oh crap button is going to be your healer LB3. I don't think I've actually run into a situation where I've heard anybody that I played with say, yeah, we could have healer LB Wonder too. Even when you're running something like Ultima's a bad example because it gives you a full 3 at the end. But like, what's a good example? Like Aurum Vale, right? Say like one of the bosses in Aurum Vale, you can pop your LB on to do a lot of big damage because you're gonna have another LB1 back by the end of the dungeon. So yeah, generally that's how you would prioritize LBs. Your absolute last resort, your last resort is going to be LB3 on healer. So we're kind of at the end of that queue. And at that point, it just sighs. All right. And you're all getting up and we're going to do this. And then you cast your LB3.
Do the thriller afterwards, so it's best to be safe for when you at least have enough people to make a backup dancing crew. For the flavors of healer.
Furthermore, on that subject, I hear that there's content. I don't know what it is specifically. There's content Stormblood and later that you are required to pop your tank limit breaks to get through certain content. So I'd be very curious in a non-spoiler fashion at the very least, and to know if that is true or not. That's at least what I'm hearing. And that's why I say that it can go to the top.
We have 3 boomers and the new kid on the block who bought a Glock and has a TikTok. The white mage is the most straightforward. You heal when a buddy is hurt and you attack when they're not. Just about everything in your arsenal is all about feeding them so much it'll make an inflation artist blush in embarrassment. You're also equipped with the best AOE skill in the entire game and the ability to never run out of mana unless you're really, really bad. Best of all, when your buddies get hurt, you can heal them to harness their blood for the blood lily. But let's say you want to play white mage.
Actually, I haven't gotten to that point yet. As far as the AR rotation goes, I mean, like, I'm casting arrow on most everything to DOT it, making sure people are healed, regenning people where I can, and then, you know, casting stone the rest of the time. Stone also is an interesting interaction because doesn't red mage also have stone? But if you do it as white mage, it's not hit scan, it actually has a travel time. So if you cast stone as a white mage, you'll actually see the stone projectile go from your character and you'll see it travel to the target. And it's the only class that does that with stone from my understanding. So that could be a balancing point of white mage, making sure it doesn't do too much damage too consistently, I think. But yeah, no, like this seems pretty par for the course for white mage. I haven't noticed getting really mana hungry. Like I've definitely gotten down to like half or a third, but like we're talking like something's gone wrong to get to that point. Like something messed up there to get there. So yeah, I mean, I haven't really noticed that.
But you like tarot readings and star signs like a suburban.
No, it does not miss once it's cast. You are correct, Barkeep. However, it's the only one of the stones that has a travel time, which is interesting. And I mean, it's probably because you're barred from the elements as per white mage lore.
Woman in her mid to late 20s. Astrologian is probably for you. You draw cards that will enhance the abilities of your party members, and you fill the arena with enough space dust and constellations that you'll need 5 layers of sunglasses to see. Taking this job will also teach you how to build a bomb. Don't worry, he's friendly. Scholar is a weirdo who used to hang out with all the bad DPS kids, but decided to turn their life around when they met a nice girl who supports them in their new hobby. Only problem is she knows nothing about your hobby, and you have to keep correcting her on fandom trivia. They're all about putting shields and defensive buffs that protect the party from taking damage in the first place. That way they can guess what? DPS even more. Also, your girlfriend can get sick. And finally, the new kid on the block, the Sage. A scholar who decided to stop being nice and pick up a gun that shoots lasers! Like
it always reminds me of the funnel, bits, fangs, what have you from Gundam. It's actually kind of cool.
Scholar, they also put shields and protective buffs on their party members so they can spend more time shooting lasers! How do they do this? After seeing Alphino change to the job, my guess is the Nullists are
well, that's a spoiler.
liquefied carbuncles. Rest in peace, Carby. And now you know how to play healer. You're welcome.
Amazing. So in terms of Astro, at least ARR, I've noticed Astrologian gets really mana hungry. Like it will get MP starved super quick. Like other classes, yeah, I have to use, you know, other magic classes, right? I have to use Lucid Dreaming, right? Keep my MP at a reasonable level. I have to use Lucid Dreaming off cooldown, just an ARR. I haven't noticed any of the overshields or barriers or anything like that. That's probably going to be later. That's probably going to be like, what, 60, 70 Astro maybe? You know, I'm not at that point yet, but it's interesting. Designated party, and I did get that. That's a level 50 skill. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like dance partner with dancer, but you get to choose a party member, and then there's a fraction of healing that gets shared. It's like 40% or something like that. But yeah, Astro is an interesting class. It's getting MP starved pretty easily. I wonder what's going to mitigate that later, or if maybe I'm just going too ham into heals. Well, I have a little bit more testing to do on that. I can't really talk on Scholar because I honestly haven't played it, even though mine's 70. I haven't touched it. And then the last one was Sage. That's going to be interesting. I'm very curious to try that class out, but I'm trying to wait until, you know, I get to like Stormblood before I start trying any of it. My biggest thing right now, get all my classes up to 50 and then start segueing them up to 60, 70, 80, 90, etc. And then once we get Dawn Trail where we're going up to 100, I mean, my Black Mage is going to be first to 100 and then we'll just go from there. But, I mean, this is obviously, as of recording this, I play Final Fantasy on nearly a daily basis and go through all my roulettes that I can on a daily. So, I mean, by the time I do this next one comes out, I'll probably be up 5 levels and something else. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on healing in 14? Do you think that, you know, this video holds true? Do you think that you end up camping the tank or camping, you know, other party members for healing more than this video recommends? Have you... How do you deal with those large pulls, and like when you're pulling, you know, spawn of a dungeon, say Stone Vigil, for instance, all the way to the first boss and all the mobs along the way? How do you deal with that? You know, do you still spread arrow? Do you focus on healing the tank? I'm very curious what your thoughts are. Please keep it civil, all that fun stuff, and lit up for this time. Make sure you check out JoCat. Awesome person, awesome individual. Streams a lot of Final Fantasy XIV as well, if that is up your alley, which this should be up your alley since you're watching this video. And yeah, see you in the next one.